Okay, so I want to talk about Amy Winehouse. A very, very, very sensitive subject matter, okay? So this is my disclaimer, but I want to talk about it because I've spent the last couple weeks or so doing some research. Because I just kind of recently discovered her. So I've been watching documentaries and I've been diving into her music and I've been looking at her shows and her performances and her interviews, and I've been just studying, being a student, and there was a point within it, like within the discovery process, where I felt so hopeless. And I felt lost. And I felt just alone. That's how her story, I feel like, made me feel. Me learning it and observing it. Because the ending isn't really happy. And I think you can try to sugarcoat it and turn it into some kind of romanticized outcome or legacy. But her story is depressing and sad. And I feel like if I were someone who didn't already have my faith, being a fan of hers would have made me lose any faith, because she didn't care about her fame. But she was an amazing singer, poet. But she didn't care about fame. That concerns me, because I think it's dangerous when people don't care about the fact that they are a public figure. And I think we enable behaviors, we normalize them, and we glorify and worship figures who clearly do not prove themselves to be role models. And there's no way I can blame anything on the paparazzi. Oh, the paparazzi were harassing her. Oh, the paparazzi this, or the paparazzi that. It's their fault. It's somebody's fault. I feel like no matter who we place the blame on, it won't justify. It won't justify the behaviors or, the actions or anything I watched that documentary. Here is the thing. I'm so intuitive. And I listen to my instincts. I tried to watch the Amy documentary once before. Mostly because J. Cole. I watched this J. Cole interview a long time ago. And in the interview, he talked about Amy Winehouse being one of his musical influences and that he watched the documentary. So I tried to watch it, but I kept feeling this massive resistance. I couldn't even get past the beginning, the first maybe 10 minutes. So I gave it some time and then I came back to it. The story, it starts so vibrant and childlike. And I'm talking about the Amy documentary on Max. There's other documentaries, and they recently just did a biopic. And I'm going to go back to the documentary that I'm talking about. But I just want to say, I think biopics are so disrespectful. I feel like they don't pay tribute. I think they mock and I think they imitate. I think they are distasteful. I don't like them. I don't like the idea of telling someone's story and they aren't here to contribute. I don't like the idea of someone pretending to be a dead person. I apologize if that sounds harsh, but I want to say what I mean and mean what I say. And I think that Amy Winehouse biopic, too soon. I would prefer maybe not ever at all, but just in general, I think maybe too soon. It's only been, like a little bit over a decade. Guys, calm down. Jeez. Y'all always want to profit off of something. What is up with that? Like, what? The woman was literally just here, and now we're already romanticizing her freaking... Anything that is turned into film is romanticized. Anything that is written to be on screen is romanticized. So we're romanticizing her life, her story, her death. I just don't like that. But going back to the Amy documentary is on Max. It starts so childlike, okay? Heartfelt, wholesome, and warm. And I think what really happens, where a distinct turning point is that they have this excerpt of an interview where she's saying if she ever got famous, she would go mad. I just feel like by the end of the story, no one knows who she was. And I think we place all these labels. Oh, she was an addict. Oh, she was this. Oh, she was that. Maybe, right? Like, maybe, okay? But at the end of the day, no one knew really who that was. Like, who was that? That wasn't the person whose music we loved. That wasn't the person who I feel like we accepted into our hearts when she just made this impression on us that was like, whoa. But in the end, she wasn't even tuned in. Like, she wasn't even tapped in. She was totally absent. And I think when you are a musician and you find a likeness to your passion in another person's, and you see what success has done to them, you see what fame did to them, if we can blame it on success, if we can blame it on fame, really. But you see what happened after this person obtained these experiences and possessed this fortune, right? You see it and it makes you think like, oh my goodness. You start to internalize. Because I think any artist that's on the come up, it's such a vulnerable space to be in. You're so susceptible because you're so vulnerable. Like, when you're writing music and you're trying to make it and you are not just trying to make money, right? Like, yeah, money is in it somewhere, but you're actually putting your heart, you're putting yourself, you're putting your soul into the music that you write. And if it's one thing that I can say, that, excuse the Federals, you can hear the sirens in the back, but I was gonna say, if there's one thing about Amy Winehouse story that is a positive, that made me a much more optimistic, is she is the first artist that convinced me to physically pick up a pen and write a song on a piece of paper. The only artist. Because when I actually listen to her music, she's the best way I can describe it is like, yeah, she's singing. When you listen on the surface, her voice is beautiful and she has this melody. But when you listen a little bit deeper than the surface, she's rapping. She has a flow. She's flowing on the beat. There's a rhythm. There's points that she's hitting. There's certain words that, yes, the way she's saying it sounds like she's singing, but she's rapping. She's flowing. But I like that it's received as singing. So after watching her documentary, I picked up a pen and I wrote a song. And it was so different because I had only written my songs on a device, like a phone or computer or something, laptop. And I think Amy's relationship to music was real. I think that was reality. But what it also makes me curious about is how transparent an artist or musician is in their music. You know, like how worth it. There it is. How worth it is it for us to receive vulnerability and transparency if it ends up leading to self-destruction? Because I personally think that's also something, when you are so open and vulnerable with your music, especially when you write it yourself and you're like peeling yourself and you're bleeding it into your work, I think it diminishes the boundary between yourself and your audience. Because they're inside of your psyche, you know. If your music is an open door directly into your innermost thoughts and your innermost feelings, there's no more boundaries there. And if there's no more boundaries, I personally feel like it increases the severity of a person's experience of fame, because I think their audience is a bit more inclined to feel a personal connection because the lyrics are so personal. So I think for me, it just raised awareness on just knowing yourself, and that if you're going to be raw, if you're going to be real, if you're going to be transparent with your music and the stuff that you write, you better be prepared for an experience of fame that has no boundaries. If you are going to be a writer that has no boundaries, you better be prepared for success that does the same thing, that matches that energy, baby. Because when it comes, you can't be like, oh, I didn't want this. Oh, it's too much. And I don't like when artists do that. I think for Amy, she coped with it. She coped with it in a way that was her decision. And I believe that. But it doesn't have to be something that leads you down a dark path. I think if you prepare for the success that you intend, you prepare appropriately. When it comes, you're going to be the master, not the slave. And that's what I got from studying Amy Winehouse really closely, and just paying attention to the lessons that the universe is telling me right now, teaching me right now. The things in my life that are trying to explain themselves to me, I'm just being open and allowing them. So, yes, Okay, that's all.